Okay, hi everyone and welcome back to the course on Comptia Security plus Application Security. Let's talk more about the applications security on mobile devices. We've already mentioned that applications should usually be updated to the latest version and discussed the importance of proper user interaction. But let's delve a bit deeper and talk about ways to encrypt data that is transferred through applications. Encryption is one of the best ways to ensure that data is secured and that applications work properly without interference from potential hackers. However, a security administrator should consider whole device encryption, which encrypts the internal memory and any removable SD cards. Sometimes an admin might forget about one or the other. Then there is data in transit. Data that is on the move between a client and a server. Most applications for mobile devices communicate with a server of some sort. For example, when a person uses a web browser, an email client, a contacts database, or actual apps that work independently of a browser will operate in a similar manner, meaning that they ultimately connect to a server. Whether apps, games, social media apps, and so on fall into this category. Let's consider the web browser. For instance, a mobile device will connect to websites in a very similar manner as a desktop computer. Basic websites will use a hypertext transfer protocol HTTP connection, but websites that require any type of personally identifiable information will use HTTP secure HTTPS. This can then utilize one of several types of encryption, such as transport layer security, TLS, whatever the security protocol. The important point here is that the server connected to make use of a database that stores encryption keys. The key or a portion thereof is sent to the client device and is agreed upon. Handshaking occurs so that the transfer of data, especially private information, is encrypted and protected. Often HTTPS pages are used to aid in the process of authentication, the confirmation of a person's or computer's identity, typically with the help of a username password combination. Examples of this include when you log into your computer with a bank account or with a shopping portal. One of the important roles of the server is the key management, the creation, storage, usage and retirement of encryption keys, proper key management and the regular updating of keys is a security administrator's primary concern. Generally, an organization will purchase a master key algorithm from a third-party company such as VeriSign. That company informs the organization if a key has become compromised and needs to be revoked. These third parties might also take part in credential management, the managing of usernames, passwords, pins and other passcodes, usually stored within a secure database. To make things a bit easier for the security administrator, it depends on the size of the organization and its budget. This gets quite in depth, as you can imagine. For now, realize that a mobile device is an easy target. Therefore, applications, especially third-party apps, should be scrutinized to make sure that they are using a solid encryption plan when personal information is transferred back and forth. Authentication to servers and other networks and all their applications can get even more complicated when the concept of transitive trust is implemented. Effectively, a transitive trust is when two networks or more have a relationship such that users logging in to one network get access to data on another. In days gone by, these types of trusts were created automatically between different sections of networks. However, it was quickly realized that this type of transitivity was insecure, allowing hackers and potential attackers access to other networks that they shouldn't have access to in the first place. There's a larger looming threat here as well. The transitive trust is based on the transitive property in mathematics which states that A is equal to B and that B is equal to C, and then A is automatically equal to C. Put in computer terms, if the New York network trusts the California network, then the California network trusts the Hong Kong network, then the New York network automatically trusts the Hong Kong network. You can imagine the security concerns here, as well as the domino effect that could occur. So organizations will usually prefer the non-transitive trust, where users need to be authenticated to each network separately and therefore are limited to the applications and data that have access to a per network basis. To further restrict users and increase application security, application whitelisting is often used. This means that a list of approved applications is created by the administrator and that the user can work with only those applications and no others. This is often done within a computer policy and can be made more manageable by utilizing a mobile device management system, which we will detail a bit later. Users only need access to several apps, phone, email, contacts, and a web browser. Therefore, these applications would make up the whitelist, and if the user tried other apps, they would be denied, or at the very least would be prompted for additional user credentials. If a user needed access to another app such as the camera, the security administrator would weigh the security concerns, GPS link to social media and so on, and decide whether to add the app to the whitelist. Whitelisting can also be helpful when dealing with apps that utilize OAuth, a common mechanism used by social media companies to permit users to share account information with third-party applications and websites. Contrast the concept of application whitelisting with application blacklisting, the denial of individual applications, a common method used when working with email and by antivirus and HIDS programs. The message app is a particularly devious gateway for attackers. SMS and MMS are vulnerable to malware, and unwary users of mobile devices are especially susceptible to Trojans and phishing via SMS text. One way to prevent this is to install mobile anti-malware in the form of Mobile Security Suite or another. This endpoint protection platform needs to be updated and is best controlled from a mobile device management MDM. Another way is to block messaging apps altogether, is to use company approved messaging apps. This option depends on what type of mobile environment you are allowing. It will work for some mobile environments where the IT department has more control over devices, but probably not BYOD, which is bring your own device. If your organization uses a mobile payment method, it is important to understand that the application that control these payment methods and devices they run on can have several vulnerabilities. These include weak passwords for the mobile device and for the payment app, user error and phishing. Not only that, the technology itself is inherently insecure. Given the mobility of the device, users should be educated about not using their mobile devices for payment while making a public Wi-Fi connection. They should also be taught on how to properly and discreetly use payment apps, and of course they should be instructed on how to avoid loss or theft of a mobile device and what to do if loss or theft occurs. As the security administrator, you should consider using an external reader for payment transactions on mobile devices and teaching users to keep the reader separate from the mobile device when not in use. Geotagging also written as geotagging is another application concerns. Photos, videos, website messages, and much more can be geotagged. Geotagging is the adding of data to the content in question, helping users to gather location specific information. For example, if a user wanted to take a picture of their favorite store at the mall and help friends to find it, the user could geotag the picture. However, this requires that the smartphone or mobile device have GPS installed and running. This then means that the user's smartphone can be physically located and tracked depending on the applications running. This could pose a security threat. In a corporate environment, a security administrator will often choose to disable geotagging feature. There are several privacy implications when it comes to geotagging. One of the most dangerous is the fact that many users don't even know they are geotagging their media when they use. Some of the applications are that transparent for people in the company, such as executives who might carry a wealth of confidential information. This is a type of feature that should be disabled. If a potential attacker can track an executive, then the attacker can find out where the executive lives, determine when the executive is in the office, and determine the location of the client, all of which can help the attacker to commit corporate espionage. When it comes down to it, the usage of GPS in general should be examined carefully, weighing the benefits against the possible vulnerabilities. This includes GPS derivatives such as GPS tagging, geofencing, geolocation. Many executives and other employees use their mobile devices at work, which brings up many security concerns besides GPS. Collectively, these are known as BYOD concerns and are described in the following section. BYOD concerns. Around 2011, organizations began to allow employees to bring their own mobile devices into work and connect them to the organization's network for work purposes only, of course. This bring your own device concept has grown into a popular method of computing for many organizations. It is enticing from a budgeting standpoint, but it can be very difficult on the security administrator and possibly on the user as well. In order to have a successful BYOD implementation, the key is to implement storage segmentation, a clear separation of organizational and personal information, applications and other content. It must be unmistakable whether the data ownership line occurs for networks with a lot of users. Consider third-party offerings from companies that make use of mobile device management (MDM) platforms. There are centralized software solutions that can control, configure, update and secure remote mobile devices such as Android, iOS, BlackBerry and so on, all from one administrative console. The MDM software can run from a server within the organization or administered within the cloud. It makes the job of a mobile IT security administrator at least management. From the central location, the security administrator can carry out the tasks of application management, content management and patch management. The admin can also set up more security levels of mobile device access control. Access control is the methodology used to allow access to computer systems. For larger organizations, MDM software makes it easy for an admin to view inventory control, such as how many devices are active for each of the mobile operating systems used. It also makes it simpler to track assets such as the devices themselves and the types of data each contains. In addition, MDM software makes it less complicated to disable unused features on multiple devices at once, thereby increasing the efficiency of the device, reducing their footprint and ultimately making them more secure. For instance, an employee who happens to have both a smartphone and a tablet capable of making cellular calls doesn't necessarily need the latter. The admin could disable the tablet's cellular capability, which would increase battery efficiency as well as security for that device. Insecure user configurations such as routing jailbreaking can be blocked from MDM, and as can side loading, the art of loading third-party apps from a location outside by the official application store for that device. Note that side loading can occur in several ways: by direct internet connection, usually disabled by default, by connecting to a second mobile device via USB, OTG, USB on the go, or Bluetooth, by copying apps directly from the micro SD card via tethering to a PC or Mac. Finally, application control becomes easier as well. Applications can be installed, uninstalled, updated and secured from that central location. Even devices' removable storage, often USB based, can be manipulated as long as the removable storage is currently connected to the device. User acceptance of BYOD is mixed in its reaction. Some employees like the idea of using their own device, which they might not have been allowed to use at work previously, and not having to train on a separate work computer. However, some employees believe that BYOD is just a way to move computing costs from the company to the user, and the level of trust is low. Around 2013, studies showed that the perception of BYOD and MDM solutions varied. Approximately 40% of users believe that their employer can see personal information on their mobile devices. This brings up a variety of legal concerns, such as the right to privacy. Companies that offer BYOD MDM solutions counter this by drawing a clear line in the sand, defining exactly what employers can see, for example, corporate email, and what they can see, such as personal texts. In general, these companies try to protect the privacy of the individual. Many organizations will write clear privacy policies that define, if necessary, selective wipes of secure corporate data while protecting personal data. As of the writing of this book, the technology is not perfect, and there will be some debate over time to its long-term viability. Part of the debate includes additional concerns. For example, additional legal concerns exist about such things as employee misconduct and fraud. As of the writing of this book, legal precedents are being set, and the general consensus is gravitating towards separation of personal and organizational data. Anything found that could possibly implicate an employee of wrongdoing would have to be found in the organization portion of the data from a forensics point of view. However, and because the device can't be split in two, if any potential wrongdoing is investigated, the device would need to be confiscated for analysis. Most employees of all age groups are also connected with how to onboard devices, such as onboard camera can be used against them with or without their knowledge. Companies that offer BYOD solutions tend to refer to the camera and photos taken as part of personal data of the device. However, some companies will include GPS location as something the company can see, but this can be linked to a corporate login with GPS tracking the user only when the user is logged in. Onboarding and offboarding is general or another concern is spent. Essentially, onboarding is when the security administrator takes control of the device temporarily to configure it, update, and perhaps monitor it, and offboarding is when the security administrator relinquishes control of the device when finished with it. It brings up some questions for the employee. When does it happen? How long does it take? How will my device be affected? Are there any architectural infrastructure concerns? For example, will the BYOD solution change the core of my files? Will an update done by a person when at home render device inactive the next day at work? This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to questions and concerns about BYOD. The best course of action is for an organization to set firm policies about all of these topics. Policies need to be instituted include an acceptable use policy, a data ownership policy, and a support ownership policy. In essence, these define when a user is allowed to do with the device during work hours, who owns what data and how the data is separated, and under what scenario the organization takes care of technical support for the device as opposed to the user to help secure the mobile devices in a BYOD enterprise environment. Some third-party providers offer embedded certificate authority for managing devices and user identity, sophisticated posture monitoring, and automated policy workflow, so non-compliant devices do not get enterprise access, and certificate-based security to secure email and reduce the chance of data loss. Chapter summary. A good security administrator is proactive. Preventing the threats discussed in this chapter requires updating systems and applications and possibly redesigning networks and systems from the ground up. It also means using firewalls, host-based intrusion detection systems, HIDS, and data loss prevention DLP systems. It requires in-depth configuration of applications, filtering, and secure policies, and of course this all signifies a need for user training. Software is not the only place to increase security. Hardware can be physically protected, and firmware such as the BIOS should be secured as well. As mentioned, the most important thing to a company, technologically speaking, is data. So the securing of all types of storage devices, essentially movable storage, is paramount. This can be done in a physical manner and in a logical manner by utilizing hardware security modules, HSMs, and encryption respectively. A computer is a computer. It doesn't matter if it's a PC from 1986 or a mobile device from this year. All computers need to be secured using the same principles and policies. However, historically, mobile devices have tended to fall through the cracks, so companies have really started gearing up the security for these devices. In most organizations, it is not feasible to stop a person from bringing their smartphone into work. Some organizations have decided to embrace this practice and benefited from it with a policy of bringing in your own device, BYOD, to be used for work purposes in addition to personal. While this creates a whole new slew of new security considerations, some organizations are implementing BYOD, CYOD successfully by creating a well-defined demarcation point between the user's data and the organizations. By instituting this concept along with a mobile device management MDM solution, strong policies for theft, wireless attacks, application security, mobile devices can survive and thrive in the enterprise or small office, yet remain safe and accessible for personal use. I'm going to leave it here today for this video. If you like listening, please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you.